Today, we get a great reminder that your vehicle is often your best choice as a defensive tool. Hey, everybody, welcome to today's active self-protection lesson. I'm your host, John Correa.
And I'm your co-host, Neil Widener.
To win the fight after the fight, you need help. After a use of force, I trust Firearms Legal Protection to help me win the fight for the rest of my life. From their 24/7 attorney-answered hotline to coverage for the use of all legal tools, Firearms Legal Protection has you covered. Get a discount by signing up at the link below. Two dudes who are pretending to be trash collectors at 4:30 in the morning. One of them pulls a gun to try to get a guy out of the car, and that guy goes, nope, and puts him right over the hood and his buddy over the hood as well. They were acting in concert. The guy with the gun actually gets up and runs off. The guy who did not have the gun actually took the sidewalk temperature challenge right there, and our driver was not injured. Hey, Neil, why do you think people don't think about their car as much when they are in a defensive encounter?
I think it's just that, it's something they aren't used to. They haven't really thought through the process, and it's just not the norm. So there's that whole normalcy bias that just catches people off guard and they don't know what to do.
I agree. Let's talk about it in the lessons. Pretty sad state of affairs when people are pretending to be trash collectors in order to set themselves up for carjackings. But I do think, Neil, that there's a point here that the bad guy gets to set the time and the place of the attack, and he's only going to tell you about it at the last minute.
Yeah, the bad guy gets to set the time, and they're getting more and more creative as we continue to see this stuff, because I think people are finally starting to kind of catch on to seeing those different triggering events and those red flags. So they've got to be a little more creative. And, while this one, I don't know that I'm crazy about it, just acting like they're out picking up cans gives them an opportunity to be out in the street. And so, we've just got to be aware and alert and ready to react.
I also think, again, 4:30 in the morning. Now, some people give me a hard time sometimes because we talk about the rules of stupid. Don't go stupid places with stupid people at stupid times and do stupid things for stupid reasons. And you can usually break one and get away with it. But you start breaking more than one and your chances of problems go up. And people give me a hard time. They're like, well, John, that's not realistic. Now, you can break one. And being out at 4:30 in the morning, basically between midnight and 5 is stupid times. Sometimes you got to be out at that time. You just got to recognize that that's when the cockroaches come out, and you got to be aware of that. And I don't understand why that's controversial.
I don't either. I think it's just, it's one of those things where they hear a set of rules and they're like, no, that absolutely isn't right, because they can't compartmentalize those rules and understand that potentially you can break one. Potentially, there's a lot of people that have to go to work at 5 a.m. So they're going to be on the road at 4 or those kind of things. But the reality is that we've just got to pay a little bit more attention at that time, because like you say, that's when the bad guys are out and about looking to do, the bad guy things. It's a whole lot easier with the cover of darkness. So if you're going to break one of those rules, just acknowledge it. And we acknowledge it. It happens. I get up early sometimes and drive around, I go hunting. So I'm sitting at a gas station at 4:30 in the morning sometimes. That doesn't mean that I'm, just absolutely not going to live my life. It just means I'm going to be aware that, hey, this is a stupid time. So stupid things could potentially happen right now.
Hey, at stupid times, sometimes stupid things happen. Just pay attention to your world. Attention buys you time. Time buys you options. Now, I'm not positive of this here, but it looks to me like our guy with the gun rips one off into the sky in order to say, hey, I want your car. And these kind of things happen. Bad guys, we get these aggressors and they will point guns at us. They'll even send rounds into the air in order to tell you this gun is real, it's loaded, and I'm willing to use it. So you got to think here in the second. You've got a split second to decide. And I think the interesting part here is these kinds of mental reps tell us, what would I do in the moment here right now? Because I think there are several options. I can just continue to drive swerve around these guys and be gone. I can turn into them like our good guy did here and hit them with the car. I could conceivably hit the brakes, back up, and reverse away. I could get my firearm out and end up having a gunfight. But I think if we've never considered it, then we get this, paralysis by analysis, and that's where people's problems come in and where they get carjacked.
Yeah, with all of those different options, because there are so many, a lot of times people will freeze because they just can't pick that one that's going to work. And so having a mental rep like we've got today is a great opportunity to just think through that and think through, how long does it take for me to actually stop at whatever speed I'm going shift the transmission into reverse and get out of there when somebody's got a loaded firearm that they've already shown that they're willing to use. So I don't think that that's a great solution. It's one to think through. But also, do I want to steer into them or around them? If I steer around them and he's already pulled the trigger, once shot into the air, he very well likely may put one through the window at me as I try to drive away. So I really like I'm steering into the trouble here and I'm going to take them out as best I can. But again, that comes with another challenge that some vehicles will have an automatic disable that if you hit something in the front, all of a sudden you lose power. It might shut the engine off. You might have an airbag hit you, all of those different kind of things. So those are the kind of things that use this mental rep to decide in your moment, if something like that happened, what are your options or what are the repercussions of the different options and the unintended consequences that you might face by doing what it is that you decide to do.
I think that's really wise. And, Gary Klein talks about this in his research in recognition prime decision making, that if we have 100 options available to us, it's very hard. But what we'll do is we'll pick the first one that works in the moment. So think about that. If I hit him with my car, is my car going to be disabled? But if you know that in advance and you think that's probably a bad option for me, so I'm going to go around him instead, because I don't want a disabled vehicle in the midst here. Now, he hits this guy, and I'm just going to say I want to talk about the legal aspects of this. Of course, I'm not talking about Sal Gonçalo here because I don't know the Brazilian system. I want to talk to my American audience because that's the primary audience of active self-protection. In the United States, somebody threatening you with a firearm is an immediate threat of death or great bodily injury. I don't think you would have a problem in any state in the union, given the immediacy of this, of using deadly force. Because I know some people are going to say, but John, there are some states with a duty to retreat. Only if you can retreat in complete safety. So remember, we've done videos on this on Active Self-Protection Extra, and certainly in our legal update classes in the ASP Unlimited app in depth. So make sure that you're checking those if you're in the app. That the difference between stand your ground and duty to retreat is actually very, very thin to non-existent, because you have to be able to retreat in complete safety. He couldn't. I think there's absolute justification here to run this guy over with the car because he's threatening you with a gun. And it doesn't really matter which form of deadly force you use if deadly force is authorized to stop a threat.
Yeah, it seems like every single video anymore has multiple, dozens of comments of, well, if this happened in my state, if this happened in my country, if this happened in whatever, and they run out the scenarios. And in some countries, maybe it will. But I think here in the States, in all 50 states, if somebody points a gun and shoots over your head as you're driving up, you're going to have to, and again, anything can happen. I get it. There's always going to be, some aggressive DA that wants to make a name for themselves, or it is an election year or something along those lines. But the reality is, I think this guy made the right decision in the moment. He stopped the threat. He got himself away. Now hopefully he called 911 to report this, so that if these bad guys go scampering off and they call 911 and say, hey, some dude's swerving in the streets, again, that's just another decision that we've got to make along the way. And I think the right decision is to call it in after you're safe.
I agree 100% with that advice. Win the fight to 911. But also, again, did this guy face an immediate threat of death or great bodily harm that was otherwise unavoidable? Yes, he did. He did nothing to earn it. He's, kind of clear as the wind-driven snow here in terms of, his innocence. And he faced an immediate unavoidable threat of death or great bodily injury. So he can respond to that with deadly force in order to stop it. He did. Now let's talk about the second guy here, because I know some folks are going to be like, well, yeah, the first guy was pointing a gun at you, but the second guy wasn't, and you hit him, and therefore you're responsible. Now, if this guy was a bystander, then he'd certainly be facing some civil liability for sure. Because again, if you hurt somebody that you didn't need to hurt or that didn't deserve to be hurt, well, then you could be civilly responsible for making them whole again. But these two guys were working together. These were robbers together, and therefore they are working in concert. And in almost all states, there are laws that are in place that prohibit people from suing folks who are, when they are involved in the commission of a felony crime. And this guy is. And since they're working together, I don't have a problem with it. And I think that he wouldn't have a problem with it almost anywhere in the United States. I mean, I suppose, if you're in some really bastion where they don't like self-defense at all, maybe. But because they're acting in concert, they're armed robbers together. They're kind of working as a unit, and therefore both a threat, in my opinion.
We can what if it to death, really, and I think that's what happens sometimes in our comment sections is, well, in my state this would happen. Well, if you play that out, then what would you do, and make your decision based off of what you would do, but then also continue that through the end of the scenario. If you decide to hit it reverse and back away, can you actually do that, and what risk do you have? This guy has already shown that he's going to pull the trigger, and that he's willing to use deadly force. So do you have time to do that, to retreat? If you're going to swerve to the right and go around them, are you willing to bet that he's not going to throw one through the window as a, I told you to stop, how dare you, now you must pay kind of scenario? And so, I think that's the thing that we struggle with sometimes in these what ifs, when we're like, well, in my state, this would happen. First off, you just don't know that in most cases. In most cases, you know that it might happen, and you might have a horror story or two, because they're everywhere. But the reality is that this guy got away, and lived to fight another day, and very likely, even if there were some charges that come his way, you can get somebody to explain this out. You can get an expert witness. You can explain this pretty easily yourself, I think. And so, I think he made the right decision in the moment. And if you have to pay the price with some sort of legal issues, a case or something, at least you're alive to fight it.
I think that's really wise. At least you're alive to fight it, right? Like, so, and again, otherwise you're dead. And I think that's obviously the most negative outcome. Now, I do want to note here as well, him turning into the left. You notice he kind of went over that planter on the last one. And I want to note the background here real quick, because those planters are not insignificant. So that turning left was a risk too. So like you said earlier, Neil, swerving away from these guys, it's a risk because they might put a bullet through the windshield. The one on the left, man, could have disabled that car, blown tires, blown up the suspension of the vehicle, stopped the vehicle if it was big enough. So I'm not saying that there's no risk any way you go, and that you're not required to make a perfect decision as well. So having backup plans, I think this worked really well here. But I do think there's a lesson here that even with the success here, I carry my gun every day because my vehicle is my primary plan. But if the vehicle becomes disabled because it hit something like a planter, like a person, like the computer shuts it down, I want to have the ability that says, this guy's still got a gun. I can protect myself if the vehicle isn't working anymore.
Right. That's the thing. We don't have the rest of the video here. Now, this guy, our bad guy, the one that lived, scampers off, probably because he's in shock after getting hit like that. But we don't know if the car, skidded to a stop after hitting that concrete or whatever. So having the gun on you so that you can switch to that if you must is highly important, I think. And this is where, John, I'm just going to tee one up here for you. This is where the magnet holster enters the comment and the chat section. John, what do you have to say about a magnet holster in the car?
Please, God, no magnet holsters. The correct holster for your car is the one that is also your restaurant holster and your Walmart holster. It is, and your house holster. It is the one that you brought the gun to the car with. Those magnet holsters, man, I'll put a link in the description to a video that Philster just did, which was fantastic, that tested all these in-car holsters, and they show how incredibly dangerous they are in incidents like this, and why you want to absolutely say no, heck no to that. Please hear me. Don't use those car dash and under dash holsters. They are problematic hugely. I do think here, our guy at the end of the day, I think he made a really good decision. He thought hard in the moment, made a good choice, got rid of the threat, and covered his ass.